The following views are not necessarily endorsed by this radio station.
We're speaking with Michelle Pearce, CEO of the Australian Christian Lobby. Firstly, Michelle, what is the Australian Christian Lobby?
It's a political lobby group. We lobby politicians on issues that Christians are concerned about across the nation. We have influence on public policy, and also we educate Christians around the nation as to what the key issues are and enable them to campaign alongside us.
Now, you've created a website, australiavotes.org.au. How should people use it?
australiavotes.org.au is a website where we have compared all of the policies of the major parties on issues of concern to Christians, and also allowed candidates to respond to a question that we've put to them so Christians can compare the positions of the parties and also see the values of their candidates.
How have you chosen the policy questions addressed on the website?
There are a broad range of issues that Christians are concerned about. We couldn't ask parties 100 questions, so we had to condense it to those that we really believe are pertinent to our nation at this very moment. So I think that Christians who come from many different perspectives will be able to appreciate the answers that are given on the website.
And finally, Michelle, what would be your encouragement to Christians as the election draws closer?
Go onto the website australiavotes.org.au and be informed. If all Christians are well informed and if we all vote according to truth, then we can have a significant impact on the outcome of the election.
Authorised by M. Pearce for the Australian Christian Lobby Canberra, station sponsor.
Thanks so much for joining me for another podcast conversation with somebody else who helps us head towards a better understanding of our own world. And she does it through a tragic circumstance, but then the hope that we can have to face almost anything as we hear the remarkable story of Renée Bondi. Now, thank you so much to Catholic speakers who have connected us up with her to be able to have this conversation. We're going to hear in a couple of minutes' time the horrifying way that she became a quadriplegic. And I say that in the sense that it is such a way that you could be so disappointed and angry at God in, and yet she has found hope in her life and the purpose of her life and in connection she has to Jesus. If you love these podcasts, would you please rate, review, share, like them? It helps us get them out to more people. It's always a free podcast. We just love sharing it to as many people as possible and hopefully helping them have a better understanding of their world, their part in their world, the fact that God loves them. If you love these, would you do those things? As we said, rate and review and share it and follow it, all those sorts of things. Thank you so much. All right, let's get stuck into this conversation with Renée Bondi. Renée, thanks so much.
Hello, Clayton. Thank you for having me.
It is great to have a chat to you, and I am just so looking forward to speaking a bit about your music, about your life, and about your inspiration and hope you can provide to us. Let's start with back at the age of 29 and some things that were going on. Maybe just frame for us what your world was like at that point.
Well, as you said, 29 years old. I was engaged to be married. Our wedding was just 2 months away. So everything from the final fitting of the bridal gown, picking up the bridesmaids' dresses, and all the planning, I was right smack in the middle of it all. I had just been awarded Teacher of the Year as a high school choir director in the local public school, San Clemente, Southern California, and loved my job teaching vocal music. That was my jam. I loved doing it. And so life was it was awesome at the time. It was good.
So I love this. This is where it was. Everything's flying in all the ways, and what a remarkable thing. And I do love that, Teacher of the Year as well. My wife's a teacher, so anytime we can, celebrate our teachers, let's make sure we do as well. Renée, things changed really quickly, and in a way that you could never have known or understood or even seen coming. Could you take us through what occurred for you?
Sure. So there was a Saturday night that it was the junior-senior prom. I'm assuming that you have those over Australia, New Zealand area.
We do. We call them slightly different things, but yes, we've got those. That's right.
Got it. Okay. And so my fiancé was living in Colorado at the time. I'm in Southern California. He had flown into town to be my date to the prom. And he had surprised me with my rock, as I say, my engagement ring. And even though we had been engaged for a whole year, we had designed a ring. And so he had been making payments on it, made the final payment on it, and surprised me with the dinner. So we had a very romantic dinner. And then we went to the prom and did all the chaperoning and made sure, all the kids were in the right places where they're supposed to be and not in the wrong places. And we danced a bit also and just had a wonderful, wonderful evening. The next day, he flew back to Colorado. I went over to the high school to conduct the orchestra for the spring musical. And San Clemente is a big surf town, very much a surf city in Southern California. And to get all those surfers off the beach and into the theater was kind of a big deal. And it was a sold-out crowd, and it went really, really well. And went to bed that night about 11 o'clock feeling great, really excited about my life. The next thing I know, I woke up out of a sound, deep sleep, standing on the end of my bed. So I was actually standing on my bed when I woke up. Now, I don't remember any kind of seizure or hallucination or sleepwalking or anything like that. But I literally woke up standing on the end of the bed, and just a split second after I woke up, I dove off the end of the bed onto my head. I heard my neck go when I hit the ground. I finished the flip, laying flat on my back with my feet close to the closet, my head up against the dust ruffle. Boom! And I thought, what in the world? I woke up the rest of the way, and I think, what am I doing on the floor? As I tried to get up to go back to bed and figure out what went on, every time I tried to get up, I roll over on my side, and this just knife, it just felt like a knife. It was not really a knife, but it felt just like that kind of a cut into my neck. So strong. I went, and it threw me back on my back. Oh my goodness, I can't get up that way. So I tried a couple different ways to get up, and finally I realized I couldn't get up. So I called for my roommate, Dorothy, and Dorothy was at the time a single mom raising her 12-year-old daughter. And as I hollered out for Dorothy, all that came out was a whisper, Dorothy. And I thought, huh? What? I took another big breath, and I tried again to get her attention, to get her to come, and still all that came out was a whisper. And now I was really scared because I thought, she's never going to hear me. I knew that her bedroom was upstairs, mine was downstairs. There's no way she was going to hear me. But within about 1 or 2 minutes, I heard, Renee! Renee! The door opened to my bedroom. Dorothy sees me on the floor, and she says, what are you doing on the floor? It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I said, I don't know, but it's my neck. I did something serious. It's killing me. I take it as no coincidence that Dorothy is a nurse, and she was already sizing me up. She could hear that I was whispering, but whispering a lot of anxiety, saying, something's wrong, something's really, really wrong. I have a lot of pain in my neck. And she saw that all the color was drained from my face and that my voice had been reduced to this whisper. And she picked up the phone, called 911, and the rest is history. I had broken my neck at cervical vertebrae 4, leaving me paralyzed from right below my shoulders down. So my legs still to this day, that was literally 36 years ago, that my legs no longer work. My arms, I can how can I say this? I can hug you, but I can't shake your hand.
Right.
My biceps work, but my hands, my fingers and wrists do not. Well, for years, we had no idea what happened. I really thought, what in the world would cause this? And about 15 years later, I was speaking at a pastor's conference, actually, in the state of Wisconsin here in the States, and a woman came up and said the same thing happened to my friend. One thing led to another. We found out that back in the late 80s, and my injury was in 1988, there was a chemical called MMA, methyl methacrylate, that was used to apply acrylic fingernails. And it was not FDA approved. And so 1 week before my injury, remember, Mike was, I had an idea he might be bringing my ring. And so I had my nails done. And we do believe that chemical went in through the cuticle into the bloodstream. However, we don't know for sure because we found this out, as I said, about 15 years after my injury, and by that time the chemical was out of my system. But that's the only thing, Clayton, that makes sense to me. It's the only thing that does.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing so openly about it. And I know that you do speak about your story, but I'm still sure every time there's a part of it to have to share it again also takes you back to those moments too. Renée, one of the things that I think, and you sort of alluded to, you speak at a pastor's conference and things like that, you have a very strong faith in Jesus. And I would imagine that many people would say, well, actually, believing in God after something like that is sort of the last thing that I'm going to try and do, because why wouldn't he have stopped me, whether it's the nails, whether it's the jumping off the bed, whatever it would be. Could you talk us through the decision, I suppose, to say, well, look, despite this circumstance that I'm in, that I'm now permanently in my life, that actually I'm going to trust Jesus? I'm guessing that there was some tough questions you would have asked at some point, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Well, I remember as if it was this morning. I remember being in the hospital. I was in the hospital for 5 months. And before the doctors let you out of the hospital, they give you a couple hours leave so that you can get used to being out in public as a quadriplegic, navigating curbs and just different things like that. So the very first day I had this leave, this opportunity to go for 3 hours, and then I had to be back at the hospital. My fiance, Mike, said, "Where do you want to go?" And I said, "I just want to go to church." And he said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, I do." So he transferred me into the front of his car. We went to church. And I was in this manual wheelchair, and he was pushing me in my wheelchair all the way up to the foot of the altar. This is a Catholic church. Up to the foot of the altar, and I sat there. Nobody else was in the church, just the two of us. And I remember looking up at the crucifix. It's the cross where Jesus is crucified, up behind the altar. And I remember saying out loud, "I don't get it. I don't like it. I don't want it. But if I'm being called to this, then God, I need for you to walk every step of this journey with me." And I can tell you, Clayton, honestly, he has. He has. 1 year after I got out of the hospital, Mike and I got married. There was not a dry eye in that church when I was rolling down the aisle rather than walking. And this year we are celebrating 35 years of marriage. I ended up being able to go back into choral conducting with helpers all around me, and I was able to go back into teaching choir. Ended up having the exact same number of students in my job after my injury as I had before my injury. Then the sweetest part of the story is 1 year, actually this is right. 6 years into my injury, I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy who is a wonderful guy, just like his dad. Daniel James is now 29 years old, and such a gift to us. And so this is not just a conversation of, well, God, you better come through here. I can tell you honestly that the scripture in Philippians 1:6 that says, "He who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it," is true. Yes, are there times where I'm so tired, because quadriplegia is relentless, where you have to have a caregiver helping you take a shower, helping you with your toiletry, helping you with getting your food, all of these things. Now, I can now feed myself with a certain brace that they attach to my hand, and a fork goes in it, then I can feed myself. But, I'm not perfect at this. I'm not always, smiling and saying, woohoo, I love being a quadriplegic. No. But when I look back over the 36 years, he truly has brought me through every valley. So when you say, I don't get it, I don't like it, I don't want it, but if I'm being called to it, then I need for you to walk every step with me, I truly can say he does.
Renée Bondi is my guest on Towards Understanding. We're going to be back with more of her story, including this conversation around, you might remember at the start of her story there, she talked about how she loves singing. This accident actually meant that she couldn't sing. But what occurred in that? It is a remarkable part of this story. We're going to continue that conversation next here on Towards Understanding.
The following views are not necessarily endorsed by this radio station.
This federal election, make an informed choice by knowing where political parties and candidates stand on the issues that shape our nation when you go to australiavotes.org.au. It cuts through political spin with a clear Christian values-based comparison of party policies and responses on issues affecting you and your community. Make your vote count by being informed and prepared at australiavotes.org.au. Thanks to the Australian Christian Lobby.
Renée, can we focus a little bit specifically around this singing part? It was obviously such a huge part of your world. I mean, even as you talked about the choir and the joy of it, we could just hear that joy. And your voice was actually lost after this accident, and you were told, is this right, that you'll probably never sing again? Is that correct?
I was told that by the neurosurgeon, and the reason why, and again, I got C's in anatomy and science. I was not gifted in the anatomy biology department at all. So I had to really learn a lot about this. Well, because in your neck, you have 7 vertebrae in your neck, number 1 being closest to the brainstem, and 7 further down. Well, I broke right in the middle, cervical vertebrae 4. Well, if you break 3, 2, or 1 higher up on the neck, you lose complete use of your diaphragm. So you have to be on the breathing machine or ventilator. I broke the neighbor to those bad ones, and so my diaphragm still worked, but all the muscles around my diaphragm are paralyzed. So that's why I was reduced to the whisper right away. Suddenly, my diaphragm had nothing to push against to support it. Well, when I was in the hospital for that 5 months, a lot of my musician friends came to visit, and one of them was a very dear friend who's a phenomenal vocal coach in Los Angeles. And Karen came to me. She'd always come when there was a lot of visitors. She would sit in the corner, and she would observe, because I was completely paralyzed. I'm laying on my back, and she noticed that when I was trying to talk louder to the visitors that were by my bed, she noticed that my stomach would go up and down a lot harder. I'm sorry, larger and higher. And she could see that I was trying to work my diaphragm more. So after they all left one day, she came and sat next to my hospital bed and said, Renee, I don't care if you walk again, but you got to sing again. I'm going to come tomorrow, which she did, with a 1 pound ankle weight, those little Velcro weights that people put around their ankles or their wrists to go walking, just to strengthen their arms or their legs. And she laid it across my stomach, and she said, all right, take a deep breath. And I took a breath to raise up the weight, and then I'd exhale. And I'd take another breath, and I would raise it up, and then I would exhale. Well, a couple days later, she brought another one in. A week later, 5 pounds, 10 pounds. By the end of the 5 months, I was up to 55 pounds on my stomach. And her thinking was, if there's a flicker of diaphragmatical muscle still working, then let's work it out. Let's get it stronger. Well, the doctors said that I would never sing again. I did this kind of very unconventional respiratory therapy for 4 years, plus our whole community, our church, my students' parents, my family were also always praying that I would be some productive member of society as a quadriplegic, because they knew that I had to be serving in some way to bring joy to myself and to my husband. Well, we started about 4 years into it, singing. One time a friend came by, and he said, let's get some singing in. And I started crying, saying, I can't sing anymore. I don't have the power. And he goes, well, let's just try it. And he sits down, and he starts playing, Be Not Afraid. I go before you always come. Follow me, and I will give you rest. And he starts playing this over and over again. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. And here came my voice, stronger and stronger and stronger. We ended up finishing a CD that I had started before my injury. I was in the middle of recording before my injury. And we ended up finishing that project, and it was titled Inner Voice because it was the songs that I feel that God used to get back into my head. Well, I never dreamt that these would go even outside of our church. Just the sweet little old ladies that go, to daily mass would be the ones that would be buying it. But pretty soon, within just a short amount of time, we'd sold over 250,000 copies of this music. And please, Clayton, you have to know, nobody was more surprised than I am by all that. I mean, absolutely. I'm a teacher. I'm a voice teacher. I was not the one that needed the applause and wanted to be on the stage. But all this music that we ended up recording, because they were songs that spoke to me during my hard journey, it was the same music that was helping others. And that's why I believe it just kind of caught our area by storm, and people really started listening to this music to help them, to give them the strength and the peace to endure their trials.
Yeah, just incredible. We've got a short clip of a song called The Last Dance, but not the last song. Just before we play a little bit of that, could you just talk a bit about the heart behind that song?
Oh, I think the title says it all.
Yeah.
That, it's the last dance, but it's not the last song. So yes, when our bodies, when our life looks like it's over, and trust me, I really thought it was. But pretty soon, when you take one step and put it in front of the other, and the next step, and then the next step, and just keep trusting, saying again, God, I don't get it, I don't like it, I don't want it, but I ask you to walk every step of the journey. He does. And pretty soon, here comes a whole other world that you never thought that you would be able to smile in and laugh in and have joy in.
A little bit of The Last Dance, but not the last song from Renée Bondi. Thanks so much for sharing a bit about that music. I know it's just been such a huge part of your world, and it's a wonderful part of your story as well, and such an awesome, incredible thing that it's a blessing to so many others too. Renée, now I know that you mentioned a couple of times, whether it's in church or heading along to a mass, and we connected in with you through this group called Catholic Speakers. So tell us a bit more. How does something like that sort of help you in with the work that you're doing, being a part of a group like that?
Well, it's interesting. Again, I'm a teacher, and I'm a high school choir teacher, and so I was very comfortable in the classroom, and I never in a million years thought that I would be some speaker. Truly, yes, I was a speaker in my little domain of my classroom, but not out on the road. Well, what happened one day, I got out of the hospital in October, and in March, the following March, I got a phone call from San Clemente Presbyterian Church, which was, again, in the same town where I was teaching. And also so many of my students went to the youth group at this San Clemente Presbyterian Church. The pastor called and said, Renée, your students really need to see you in a public setting. They are really devastated by what's happened to you. And I was really so blessed. So many of the kids came to see me in the hospital. There were fundraisers like you can't believe. They fundraised enough to purchase my first wheelchair accessible van, which is and then amazing. And then every year for the next 4 years after that, they had fundraisers to pay for 1 year of my caregiving, so that Mike, remember we weren't married yet, so that Mike could eventually be my husband and not my nurse. So they were wonderful. Well, this pastor said, will you come and let me interview you in one of my sermons in our service? And I said, well, as long as you don't mind me being blatantly honest, because I'm not real happy with God right about now. And he said, it's okay. Just speak honestly and truthfully. And I said, all right, I will. Well, I came, and I was kind of whispering at that time. My voice wasn't very strong at the time. Well, at the end of that service, there was a person that was just visiting the church. And they said, we loved what this was all about. Will you come and do the same thing at our church? And I said, well, sure. And then I went and did that, and then pretty soon somebody was visiting in that church and said, will you come to our church? Well, lo and behold, about 4 years later, I was traveling nationally speaking. Well, one of the sweetest things that happened was that Pope John Paul II, this was the Pope II before we have now, had... I was invited to speak at World Youth Day in Denver and in Denver, Colorado, here in the States, and also in Toronto, Canada. And to be able to be one of the main speakers to 500,000 teenagers, I mean, it was the ultimate classroom for me, that's for sure. And to share my testimony was so amazing. Going and speaking at World Youth Day, I call it a big Catholic Woodstock, because you're looking out over 500,000 youth. As far as the eye can see, there are teens that were there to strengthen their faith. It was so powerful. And then came back and spoke for the National Catholic Youth Conference as well, which is 30,000 teenagers. And to see them so on fire, to know their faith is so incredibly powerful to see. And sadly, I don't know how it is over in Australia and New Zealand, but over here in the States, I believe there's a real epidemic when it comes to mental health, especially for our youth. And I do believe social media has a big thing to do with that, but that's not what this conversation is about. But the problem is it's causing kids to really not understand who they are. And as soon as they understand that they are truly a child of God first, that's their claim to fame. Not looking like somebody on social media, not having the coolest boyfriend, not being the best athlete or the best musician. But if they own the fact that they are a child of God first, who cares about the rest? And we as adults, Clayton, I think we need to own the same title, that we are a child of God. I mean, even if we have parents that maybe weren't the best here on earth, we can still look to our Heavenly Father and say things to Him like I have said so many times already today. I don't get it, I don't like it, but I need for you to walk every step of the way. So, as you said at the top of the show, you said some people would say, well, why didn't God stop it? Why didn't He catch you from falling off the bed? I don't have that answer, but I do have the answer that He has given us free will. It was my choice to go have my nails done, for that weird chemical to come into my system and cause a strange action to happen. But I do know that He will turn all things, for good if we allow Him to do so.
What a beautiful summary and place to end right now as well. Renée, we could, both of us are good talkers. If anyone knows me, they know that, and you've admitted that as well. We could go on for hours having good conversations, but we have come to the end of our time. Thank you for spending some time with us. Thank you for that encouragement, even in the midst of some of the difficult times, to trust in God and see what actually comes out of that there is good that will occur. We so appreciate you taking some time and chatting to us today on Towards Understanding.
Thank you so much, Clayton, for having me. Thank you for what you are doing there.
Authorised by M. Pearce for the Australian Christian Lobby Canberra. Program sponsor.
The following views are not necessarily endorsed by this radio station.
We're speaking with Michelle Pearce, CEO of the Australian Christian Lobby. Firstly, Michelle, what is the Australian Christian Lobby?
It's a political lobby group. We lobby politicians on issues that Christians are concerned about across the nation. We have influence on public policy, and also we educate Christians around the nation as to what the key issues are and enable them to campaign alongside us.
Now, you've created a website, australiavotes.org.au. How should people use it?
AustraliaVotes.org.au is a website where we have compared all of the policies of the major parties on issues of concern to Christians, and also allowed candidates to respond to a question that we've put to them so Christians can compare the positions of the parties and also see the values of their candidates.
How have you chosen the policy questions addressed on the website?
There are a broad range of issues that Christians are concerned about. We couldn't ask parties 100 questions, so we had to condense it to those that we really believe are pertinent to our nation at this very moment. So I think that Christians who come from many different perspectives will be able to appreciate the answers that are given on the website.
And finally, Michelle, what would be your encouragement to Christians as the election draws closer?
Go onto the website australiavotes.org.au and be informed. If all Christians are well informed and if we all vote according to truth, then we can have a significant impact on the outcome of the election.
Authorised by M. Pearce for the Australian Christian Lobby Canberra. Station sponsor.